Welcome, everybody, to the July meeting of the New York City Transit Authority, the Manhattan and Bronx Surface Transit Operating Authority, and the Staten Island Rapid Transit Operating Authority, known for short as MTA Transit. Hope you're all here for some of that. Do we have any public speakers?
We have two public speakers, Mr. Chairman. The first speaker is Ethan Goldman. Mr. Goldman, you have 2 minutes, as we discussed earlier.
I'm here to talk about the proposed B25 bus route change from Fulton Street to Main Street. Already the bus comes 9 times an hour down a teeny street. That is the most heavily trafficked, most heavily residential street in Dumbo. On a teeny street, there are working garages, working loading dock, working alleyways. The street is snarled all day long with trucks, and the bus comes down 9 times an hour. They're offering 2 and 3 buses at a time on this teeny street, backed up for 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time, honking its horn. The bus drivers get out and take breaks, have smokes. They can't get through. And now the solution to the Fulton Ferry Landing thing is to send the bus down even more. All night long and all day long on Saturdays and Sundays. 5 years ago, I met with Andy Inglesby, I don't know if he's here, and talked about trying to get the bus off the street in its entirety. It is the worst street to be used for a bus route. It is being used as a turnaround by the MTA for the bus to head back down into downtown Brooklyn. There are at least 5 or 6 better alternatives, I think, that wouldn't cost anything, that would cost less than they're doing now, that would be better for the neighborhood, better for the buses, better for everybody. And I would like the MTA to have some sort of presentation to the community. DOT made a presentation, and they said, go talk to MTA. MTA said, well, we spoke to DOT, and they said they were taking care of it. Nobody in Dumbo has been alerted to this process. Nobody in Dumbo has been solicited or interviewed or surveyed. I don't think this could be good for the bus drivers or the community for traffic. It's dangerous. It blocks traffic all the way down Main Street when buses can't get on. Down Front Street towards Fulton when the buses can't get on. And I think that now that the Fulton Ferry Landing issue is being taken up, this whole issue should be considered in its entirety, and the route of the B25 bus should be considered as an important element of this, and not a throwaway that gets approved saying, well, we'll just send it down there now all the time. It's a bad idea, and it's a real neighborhood problem, and I would just ask that we could think about this and come to a better solution. I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you have some more information you'll send me for the record, correct?
Yes, I have a lot of pictures and some other things I'll send you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. We're going to look into that. Who's next?
The next speaker is Orrin Getz.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board. My name is Orrin Getz, and I live in Rockland County, but do use the New York City subways very often, and I'm representative from the Jersey Association of Rail Passengers. One thing that has unfortunately happened as a result of closing many of the token booths is the availability to update the information on your Metro card. The booths have been removed. There's no place to swipe your card and find out the value of it. Many places have these stand-up kiosks that every time you try to swipe a card through, it says, try again, try again, try again. They don't work. If you're going to remove the token booths, you have to have places in each station where at the turnstiles where a person can swipe those Metro cards and know the value of it. The only way now you can do it at those stations is to put the card through, hope it works, and then read the value on it at that time. That's definite improvement. It's a small matter, but the MTA and New York City Transit has to take care of it. And just one other real quick one, because I know time is short. Last month there was a procurement of $25 million to figure out how to reduce rolling stock costs, rolling stock procurement costs. Well, I asked a member from New Jersey Transit who I know, and he says, if you look at the MTA bus that looks just like a New Jersey Transit bus, it looks the same, but it isn't, because the MTA requires all sorts of unstandard modifications to the bus that no other transit agency requires. And some of it's kind of a lack of understanding. Why you have to have black floor mats rather than the color that all the other buses come in. Why you have to have different upholstery on the seats. Why you have to have the heater moved for the driver in a different location. And why you have to have the charging system at 220 volts rather than what everybody else uses. I think if you try to standardize your bus procurement, you could save a lot of money and procure it with other agencies throughout the United States. It's a big way of saving. The buses are pretty much standard. Other agencies can do it, and the MTA should do also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Getz. The minutes are attached to your materials. Has anybody any corrections or additions? If not, is there a motion to approve them?
Motion made.
All in favor?
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Are there any additions or changes to the work plan?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Usually some ethereal voice says that from someplace. There are no changes to the work plan. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the committee, this is Ray Diaz's last meeting with us. He began in admirable fashion because the first day he got here, he offered his cell phone number to everybody in the room, much less the entire panel and the entire staff. This is pretty hard to duplicate. Thank you for your years of service. I think almost every month your statistical performance got better and better. It's going to be impossible for anyone who follows you to have that sort of success. So thank you for everything that you've done. We really appreciate it. I now recognize our hardworking President Thomas R. Prendergast, who is probably one of the most experienced transportation operatives in the country, if not in the world, who has assured me he is not going to Hong Kong. Tom?
First of all, I'd like to second the comments of the chair to Chief Diaz. The relationship between the Transit Bureau, the New York City Police Department, and New York City Transit is one that most people understand is a very close relationship. But the attention to detail, the attention and commitment to excellence that the chief has shown in the time in that position has been second to none. And it really goes a long way toward assuring that our customers have a very safe and secure ride. So he will be sorely missed, and congratulations. Before we start the operations report, I just would like to say, for those of you that know and have been around, the two times that a system like ours goes under a lot of stress is under extremely inclement weather in the winter, when we have a lot wet, heavy snow and cold temperatures. The other time is when we have extremely high temperatures like we're experiencing and humidity. And the staff at New York City Transit, both on the bus and the subway side, have been working a lot of hours to be able to deal with what has been an extended heat wave. It looks as if we have a short respite right now, but we expect to go right back into it toward the latter part of this week. And it's not without their efforts that we're able to, if it weren't for their efforts, we wouldn't be able to deliver the service we have. And Carmen will point out some of the things that they've been doing. Carmen?
Thank you, Tom. Good morning, everyone. Let me start by just picking up where Tom left off, and that is to acknowledge our employees for all the work, the hard work that went into getting us through last week. The temperatures, as you can imagine, really taxed the system in so many ways, but we do think about it. We do put a plan in place to ensure that, number one, we're thinking about the safety of our employees and that there are many breaks that they can have during the course of the day, and that we have the right water and Gatorade replenishment, that type of product to replace electrolytes. So we do an awful lot of that. And in addition to that, behind the scenes, we have to do an awful lot to make sure that the system remains reliable and remains safe. And so we're out there riding the rails every day in that hot heat. You can tend to get a sun kink, and so it's a prescribed standard across railroads that when you have certain temperatures that you begin a riding program. So we had something like that in place. We opened up our incident command center so that if we did have an event, we'd be right on top of it. We had generators strategically placed and manned 24 hours a day, and thank goodness for that, because we did lose a portion of the Brighton line over the weekend, and to this moment in time, we're still on generators for the signal system. So an awful lot went into it, and I'm very proud of our employees and very thankful for all that they've done. Moving to subway performance results for the month of May, and the 12-month average were appropriate, or as follows. The 12-month rolling average for system-wide subway weekday weight assessment was 78.2% in May of 11. That's a slight decrease from 78.6 in May of 10. Terminal OTP for May of 11 was as follows. System-wide on-time performance was 85.6%. That's a slight decrease from 89.3% in May of 10. And weekend OTP was 90.6. That's a slight improvement from 89.6 in May of 10. I want to highlight some significant changes in on-time performance in May. Weekend on-time performance on the IRT was down from 87.7 in May of 10 to 80.3 in 11, and much of that decline was driven by the 2, 4, and 5 lines. However, as happened as similar to last month, the year-over-year decline in weight assessment on these lines was considerably less than the decline in OTP. The smaller decreases in weight assessment can be attributed to the continued use of proper delay management strategies by supervision, resulting in even headways for our customers. Even though many of the trains themselves were arriving at their final destinations more than 5 minutes late, nevertheless, the drop in OTP on the IRT line continues to be a concern and one that we are going to continue to monitor very closely. A significant portion of the decline is due to the fact that on May 2nd, the switch in signal monitorization at East 180th Street in the Bronx entered a new phase that required around-the-clock rerouting of 2 and 5 service through the East 180th Street yard at a very slow speed in order to bypass the construction zone. This bypass is highly disruptive and caused a little over 1,300 delays, accounting for approximately 30% of the difference between May of 10 and May of 11. This is a major signal and switch modernization project that will yield great benefits once it is complete. However, with the 24/7 bypass slated to continue through August, we can expect continued delays on the 2 and 5 lines. Additionally, as in the April comparison, an increase in delays due to track and signal problems accounted for 40% of the total delays impacting the 2, the 3, the N, and Q lines in particular. As reported in April, Maintenance Away Management has taken steps to improve performance, including a special managerial walking inspection on the IRT where managers from track, signals, infrastructure, and electronic maintenance are inspecting their equipment along the right-of-way, looking for conditions that can result in service disruptions. In addition, we are continuing to explore the possibility of special extended line closures that will allow maintenance forces the opportunity to achieve greater work efficiency and reduce the backlog of outstanding defects, resulting in better performance and service reliability. And finally, although in its beginning stages, the Signal Hub maintenance plan was rolled out in April of 10 that extends on the 8th, 7th, and Lexington Avenue lines from 125th Street to the middle of their respective East River tunnels. The Signal Hub model calls for dedicated signal gangs who perform maintenance tasks in the central business district area of the Lexington, 7th, and 8th Avenue corridors. They are strategically located 4-person teams who exclusively work on maintenance and testing during the hours of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. As a follow-up to the May Committee presentation on the number 7 line and the performance issues that we were experiencing there, since the concerted rehabilitation efforts began in March of this year, service reliability as measured by on-time performance has already improved by 10 percentage points. We went from 82.6% to 92.7%, and we are seeing the reliability's way up now that we are paying a lot of attention in rebuilding track circuits and putting in new resilient tie plates. In addition to the right-of-way delays in May, there were 5 major incidents that also contributed to the major causes of delays. Moving on to key performance indicator, system-wide service KPI was 82.6. That's down slightly from 84% in May of 10. System-wide passenger environment survey KPI was 91.4, down slightly from 92% in May of 10. Staten Island Railway KPI was not reported, but SIR's PES KPI was 86%, down from 88.8 in May of 10. Mean distance between failure improved in the month of May at 236,322 miles. That's up 26.3% from 187,140 in May of 10. The 12-month average, which is just absolutely outstanding, was 174,330 miles. That's up 5% from 165,999 miles in the preceding 12 months. Just a point as we talk about mean distance between failures. You may have noticed that we did move some of the R32s, which operate generally on the C line, which is totally an underground line, Because of a thermal shut-off switch on the air conditioners, we were beginning to see AC failures on that line. We moved them and swapped them out with some of the 46s on the A line so that part of their ride is outdoors. And over the past few days, given this tremendous heat that we're experiencing, we are seeing a different result. They perform much better when they get that chance to recover a little bit. So happy to report on that. So that sums up my report.
Yeah, I mean, for those of us that have ridden the system for over 20 years, and we didn't, and 30 years, and we didn't have the majority of the fleet being air conditioned, it is truly remarkable. And that's the effort to George Cortez, Chief Maintenance Officer, and his crew, because you actually have to have air conditioning maintenance all year round to be able to have it perform the way it's performing right now. Cheryl?
Tom, if I can just add one more point, because I think this is relevant. And not to boast about it, but I think it goes to the hard work of George and his team. In this incredible heat, when you think about a car fleet the size of about 6,500 cars, we had about 100 instances of AC failures, and I think that's pretty remarkable given what we're up against in the last week or so. Thank you.
Any board members on any of those 100 cars?
My line of questioning never went quite that far.
Just to follow up on a question, Carmen or Tom, if in a train or if in a 10-car or 8-car train, one car air conditioning fails, is the entire train taken out of service then, or?
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The train would be troubleshot from a standpoint of seeing whether or not it was a temporary failure on the car and could it get restored, and so the train would be kept in service. If it was more serious, it would be taken out of service.
Where would that test be done, at the terminal?
It would, wherever the RCI could meet the train. So it may be in revenue service or it may be at the terminal, and the road car inspector will go to that location. There are intermittent failures, and I think Carmen explained it on the R32s. There's a point past which, I'll try to explain this simply, the air conditioning system reaches its technical limit. You can't pump that hot air and discharge it into the tunnel environment because the ambient temperature of the tunnel has gotten so high. And you're starting to see pressures on the air conditioning system that are unsafe unless it shuts itself down. So it will shut itself down until it gets to another location where the ambient temperature is lower, and then the system can recycle itself and start again. And that's the benefit of sometimes having a system, having a car go outside, because generally the ambient temperatures outside are less. We had rooms on Friday. We had a room on Friday that had a temperature of 170 degrees because it's in an environment where the heat just continually builds and it can't aerate itself. So you have to open doors and get it cool.
With respect to safety, results were mixed. Although the subway customer accident rate decreased slightly by 1% compared to the previous 12-month period, in the month of April, the accident rate increased by 10.6%, moving to 2.91 per million subway customers from a rate of 2.63 last year. The employee lost time accident rate increased for the month and over the last 12 months, moving up 5.6% in May and by 10.5% over the previously 12-month period. There were 102 confirmed fires for the month of May, up 29.1% from the previous year. However, the fires decreased over the last 12 months by 2.9%. 99% of all fires were categorized as being low or average in the severity for the month of May.
You have a question, Chuck,
Yeah,
even though
I'd
you're
like to,
sitting
I'd like
far
to-
apart from the rest of us.
I apologize. It's not that
It's cooler there.
It's cool.
Okay.
I'd like to go back to Carmen's report, and before I do so, let me make clear that while what you're about to hear is highly critical, it is not critical of the superb work that is done by Carmen, Tom, and the rest of your staff. It's a problem that I've referred to since the day I was appointed. The Borough of the Bronx continues to have the worst subway service, the worst subway stations, the worst on-time performance, the worst wait time performance in the entire system. Now you add to that the seasonal reductions that have occurred, and you have two events. It gets worse. It's worse now than it was in last year, 09-10. You have overcrowding because you have a greater gap between trains and people come in more like sardines. there's, in my view, no justification for either the seasonal reductions, unless you say it is essential on a cost-effective basis.
You sure you haven't ridden on the 7 line at rush hour?
No, I have not, thank goodness. But I would say this. The Bronx service, according to the statistics they have here, has just gotten beyond the pale. The borough president, like one of his distinguished predecessors, has made that point over and over again over the years and has got to stop. Let me give you an illustration. Tom, can we take a look at maybe there are a number of grounds for this. One is the work gangs. Another one is overcrowding. Another one is subway train breakdowns and the like. Can we, for example, just move all of the work gangs except from emergency work to doing that on the evenings or the weekends? Can we do something in terms, and Carmen has referred to the possibility of trying to do closures and possibly fixing stuff there. But we've got to do something with
Now, wait a minute. We got a lot of work gangs out there trying to improve the service. You don't want us to do that?
I want you, but I want you to do it at a time when it isn't going to delay the trains.
Well, first of all, under the line manager program, and I hate to say it for probably the umpteenth time, for the purpose of trying to maintain high on-time performance numbers, people were denied access to the right-of-way. And now we're working off the backlog of those maintenance defects. And in the signal area with the hub maintenance, we're trying to catch up and get it back into the 95% performance standard within the required maintenance interval. So some of this has to be done because we have to assure a safe, reliable railroad. The issue of the degree to which we can move work to nights and weekends, we push the envelope, but we're not in total control of our destiny because in some cases they're subject of collective bargaining agreements, but we will do that. It's our intention to be able to do that. We will also, for the reason of trying to trim costs in the capital program, move more work to nights and actually have closures in the evenings, late evening, and overnight. We're one of 4 railroads, I believe, or transit systems left in the world that operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we pay a price for it. So what you're asking us to do, we agree with, and we're moving in those directions, and we would like to do even more because the impacts to the customers would be less, and the costs to do the work would be less.
Tom, I appreciate that, and the point I'm trying to make in this regard is in terms of your comment with respect to collective bargaining. I think this is something, the discussion on a candid basis between the transit representatives and the unions will affect a positive result. They, too, have an interest in getting this system working at its possible peak.
We agree. We've done that in the hub maintenance and signal, so there has been a dialogue with the union.
Can we then focus on the stations? That's an issue that the borough president has called to your attention and Jay's. There are some awful stations in the Bronx. What can we do about them? He gave you a report, I believe, identifying 3 or 4 of them. What is we can do about those?
We're looking at 149th and Concourse, where we have some work slated under the component program. And to expand the scope there and address some of the other conditions, because that is a station that, irrespective of the number of registrations, people that enter the station there are a lot of customers who transfer there, so it is a high-volume location. And we're looking at ways to be able to expand that scope and do that work. As far as the other stations in the Bronx, as far as the other stations in the system that are of the same ilk, we're going to be limited by the amount of resources we have in terms of capital dollars to do some of that work. But that's the approach that we're going to take.
Let me then give you one last comment in the same regard. With the seasonal reduction in service on the subways, you couple that with the reductions that have occurred at bus, and you really have a situation where the people of the Bronx are just not getting the kind of service they need. Now, I understand that's the bus division's issue, but we've got to start focusing on that. The express bus service out of the Bronx has been reduced mightily.
Express bus service across the city has been reduced, and the services on the subway lines actually affect all the boroughs. They affect, because almost every one of our lines goes through an outer borough, at least 1 or 2 outer boroughs, and Manhattan. So the subway weight assessment figures impact all 3. The changes in schedule affect all 3. Next is Chief Diaz.
Good morning. Again, in the month of June, as you see, we were up 42 crimes in the month of June. 38 of those crimes were grand larcenies. We continue to have a problem with our cell phones. As a matter of fact, year to date, 37% of all of our crimes involve the theft of cell phones, and 45% of all of our crimes involve the theft of electronic devices. We're seeing, particularly in about June, when these high-end cell phones started coming out, that's when we really started seeing an increase. We've done a number of things to combat that. As far as deployment, I think we're putting our cops in the right spot. We've made some great arrests of some real bad people that are out there continuing to commit crimes in the system. The Friday before last at 110 Lex, we locked up a pickpocket, 23 priors. That Saturday, another male, 37 prior arrests. He targets, his history is targeting sleeping passengers. And that Sunday, another person targeting sleeping passengers, 13 priors. There was an article in the papers, I think about 2 weeks ago, of a pickpocket. That person was again arrested in the last couple of weeks. So we're really looking to taking a hard look at our recidivists, because we think that's what's driving a lot of our crime, and we know we have some things in the works. We're looking to combat that. We've been doing a number of decoy operations where we put police officers out there in plain clothes, portraying to be a passenger, and we've made a number of arrests as a result of that. The other thing, as a result of this high-end thefts of phones, we've been getting a lot of information as to who's buying these phones. We were able to obtain a number of these high-end phones, and now using those phones to sell to these stores that are buying them, and we've made a substantial number of arrests in the last couple of months in targeting those particular stores. The bottom line is, though, although it's not a crime of violence, and if you look, we're running probably right now about the second lowest historic low of robberies we've ever had in the transit system, and the fact is we're averaging about 6.3 crimes a day compared to 5.6 in the prior year. It's still probably running about the fourth or fifth lowest year we've ever had. So I think it's still incredibly a low number. And I just, again, I say it's been a real pleasure to be here in the last, I guess, 14, 15 months that I've been here. I think it's a great system, a lot of great people. I got a chance to visit every station, and I think really it's just an unbelievable. I like history, and you write the system. It's just an incredible system. So thank you for the last, and your support for the last year and a half. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray, and enjoy your retirement. Somehow I know you will still be riding the subways and buses, still doing what you were doing before. But thanks for a job well done.
Finance, preliminary May 2011 farebox revenue was $304.7 million, $1.1 million or 0.4% below budget. Year-to-date farebox revenue was $1.461 billion, $8.4 million below budget, due in part to the multiple snowstorms we experienced in January. The average non-student fare in May fell to was $1.62, and in constant 1996 dollars, the average fare fell from $1.38 to $1.09 in 2011. Preliminary May 2011 operating expenses before depreciation and other than personnel expenses and benefits exceeded budget by $7.6 million, due mostly to the unfavorable timing of fringe benefit expenses, higher payroll costs due largely to reimbursable underruns and the unfavorable timing of expenses, and increased bus fuel prices. These unfavorable results were partly offset by the effect of lower paratransit completed trips. Year-to-date operating expenses were $11.7 million below budget. Ridership in May 2011 totaled $200.4 billion, 1% below budget. Year-to-date ridership was $951.2 million, or 1.4% below budget. Average weekday subway ridership was 5.4 million, an increase of just under 1% from May 2010, and the highest May weekday ridership in over 40 years. In May 2011, average weekday local bus ridership was 2.2 million, a decrease of 5.1% from May. So the trend continues in terms of the decrease on the bus side, while we're seeing an increase on the subway side. Average weekday express bus ridership was 42,000, also a decrease of 5.1% from the same period a year prior. Average weekday paratransit ridership was 30,000, a decrease of 1.5% from May 2010. An early look at preliminary June financial results. Preliminary total farebox revenue was 4.3% higher, which is 1.4% higher than budget. When we report the June revenue numbers at our next meeting, we will also show an additional $11.4 million in subway farebox revenue for the period between January and May. and this represents a 1.1% of subway fare box revenue for that period. During a reconciliation process of costs and versus budget, staff discovered that a programming error had occurred and that led to a failure to record revenue received from a relatively small percentage of pre-valued Metro cards. This error has been corrected so that effective immediately, all subway fare box revenue is being properly recorded. And preliminary June 2011 operating expenses before depreciation exceeded budget by $2.4 million, or 0.5%, due mostly to the unfavorable timing of health and welfare expenses. That concludes the financial report.
Just remember, folks, that in 1996, when the fare went to $1.50 and there were no free transfers, in 1996 dollars, the average fare is $1.09 today. Just remember that number.
Tom, how do you handle a situation that for instance, what I encountered this weekend? I saw a slam gate fastened open and people streaming in, obviously no revenue being recorded at all, at 66th Street and Broadway Station. I don't know who's responsible for it. In the instance like this, should I have called the IG? I mean, what should I do?
You can call us or email us. I mean, and we'll deal with it. There may have been a situation that for a period of time they needed to have the slam gate be held in the open position, but there's no reason why it shouldn't be manned, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be closed once that situation is over. We will look into it. 66th Street on the Lex line?
No.
66?
On the Broadway line?
Okay. I mean, it had to be a Broadway line, yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Unless you want to add something, Carmen?
No, just, what we said, when we see that, we can always say
It was about 2:30.
You know, you were the big advocate of these slam gates, mass disasters also.
Keep them closed.
Okay, but you liked them big and easy to open, remember?
It's also possible it was unintended. Somebody opened it and deliberately kept it open. It wasn't employed, but we'll look into it. It shouldn't have been open.
Okay, Capital. Look at the results for May. Included $127 million in commitments, the largest being the second of three funded phases of our annual track program, which replaces mainline track on the elevated and subway mainline switches and our continuous welded rail in the subway. The second project was the rehabilitation of the Culver Viaduct. As you know, we're doing a tremendous amount of work on the top of the viaduct between Smith and 9th and 4th Avenue. This project we just awarded is for the underside to address falling concrete on the columns on the deck. And the third project was a signal project to replace solid-state equipment, dates back to the 70s at 5 locations. Substantial completions for the month included $55 million worth of projects, the main ones being work on another concrete viaduct on the Rockaways, south of Howard Beach, over the Beach Channel area. Rehabilitation of deep wells on the Fulton Street line to continue to reduce our water infiltration at a number of stations on the A-train line through Fulton Street. And the third project being restoration of a historic arch on Ocean Parkway Viaduct, 270-foot viaduct, was completed as well. That completes my... Basically lowers the water table. You know the amount of water that we take in on the system. About 25 years ago, along Fulton Street, we installed 6 deep wells to actually continue to draw water out to lower the water table around the subway structure.
When I came to New York City Transit in 1982 at Newkirk Avenue on the IRT, we pumped out 800,000 gallons of water a day. When the Flatbush Water Company went out of business, the water table rose. Everybody's put on city water, and that water comes from the reservoir system. So it started to get above the invert, and so we had to put in deep wells to intercept the water below the invert and then take it other places. I think Perdigot Bay, I think they ended up taking it. But in any case, that's what deep wells are for, to try to keep water tables low enough so that they stay out of the subway invert.
Yes, we are. Fulton Street Transit is the first hour report today. We expect to open the 135 Williams Street entrance by the end of this week. And these are some of the murals and tiles that you will be able to see them as soon as we open it.
regarding this new entrance actually will improve the connectivity between 2, 3, and AC lines and basically expands the access into the subway from the street. This is a new entry point. At the same time, we expect to go to the next one. The Cortlandt Street R station, that is again a station that we expect to open before 9/11. This is the southbound. This is actually again some feature artwork by Margie Hutto that was in the original station, and we reinstalled it. In addition to that, this station will actually, this is how it looks actually right now, and it's pretty much on schedule and things looking good. We expect to open the Liberty Street entry point that was shut since 2001. Anyone that doesn't know what it is, actually from the outside has kind of a rounded face that looks kind of interesting, and that was closed since 2009, will be reopened, and it will provide an underpass to the southern end of the our station, and at the same time we're having also an underpass at the northern end. So there will be connectivity to the southbound platform. Obviously, we look forward when the work is completed and the World Trade Center 4 and other areas to be able to actually open station entry points and exit points from the street. The structural steel work actually on the structure itself is moving rather well and is on schedule. And by the time we meet in September, I hope to report that this is totally done. In September, I also come back to you to present to you a plan that was put in place to really make the transit center into a great public space, and what we're doing and how we'll be doing, and actually putting in place 21st century technology in terms of wayfinding, advertising, art. So there's a combination of all, and I'll come back in September to present it. That's about it on this one. Let's go to the number 7 line extension. As I mentioned last month, we received bids for our systems and finishings contract, and in fact, we expect an August award. The bid was for about $514 million. That was about within 7% of our budget. I just wanted to just show you the progress as we are going on right now. This is basically the arches, and they're in the cavern, and at this point you are 100% complete. The next thing would be the mezzanine slab, again 100% complete. That means you can walk on the mezzanine from one end to another. The walls right now as well, we're done 100%. So I'm just giving you that a sense so you understand how far along we are. The platform, the invert slab, okay, is also 100% done. And what we're doing right now, we are working on the duck bank walls. These are the walls that when the station is done, you will not see. The train is going to go by. And the platform slab is about 20% done right now. It's advancing fast because it's done. They have created a form that is kind of moving along, and we're moving it from section to section, so they're really progressing rather well. Next. Okay, that gives you kind of an isometric view of how we're doing it. This is the arches that right now are done. Then you will see the mezzanine slab. That's the one done as well. The walls are the yellow on either side. The invert slab, this is all the way down. The duck bank walls, again, as well as you can see them in blue there, and the section that has to be done is at the southern interlocking point. And then the platform and its advance as to how it's going to be done.
Next, that's it. So on the number 7, things are moving along well. Just wanted to also, in addition to reporting that we have the final contract, the system that will allow us to complete all the work needed for the operation of the number 7. I just wanted to report that HYDC that has added $267 million in construction funds. Included in this amount is $107 million of reserves and contingency, and all within the $3 billion that HYDC bond cap to complete the following additional work. This additional work that was required for us to do, and that what had to do with repackaging of construction contracts to ensure that we would have operational service by the end of 2013 and accommodate as part of it the future commercial development while minimizing the city's construction costs. A number of empty underground structures were redesigned and will be constructed. In coordination with the building of the subway, the MTA has also incorporated in this project the reconstruction of the portion of the 11th Avenue Viaduct. In order to contain the project cost, as you know, the city has decided not to proceed at this time with the 10th Avenue station. That's about number 7. Let's go to the 2nd Avenue.
Are you abandoning any tunnel boring machines on the 7 line?
Definitely not. We actually removed them through the Port Authority. It was not a good idea to leave into the Port Authority lap at the other end. Let me go to the 2nd Avenue. And the 2nd Avenue, actually, the TBM on the eastern tunnel is at 71st Street right now. So we've done about 73% of the tunneling that is there to be completed. The 2nd tunnel, yes. We have 100% of the first, actually, with the TBM, although we are blasting the last 2 blocks. So we kind of blasted through one, I believe. So now we have another one to blast through. So we are actually proceeding well there. We have worked out all our issues with the FTA and are poised to actually award the 86th Street station. And that's actually that's extremely good news for us, and we look forward to be able to, in effect, come up with some mitigating measures to be in a position to complete the job as originally promised, and actually as I promised. I mean, it's not originally promised, in December of 2016. I have some pictures actually to show you. These are not launching missiles. This is a slurry plant at 97th Street that is going to be used to do the slurry walls. Actually, can you go to the next? In order to make it look a little better, we put something as referred to as urban canvas. It looks nice with trees. This used to be a park, so we tried to kind of figure it out. And eventually we will put it back as a park, but that's how it looks right now. We are, in effect, continuing to upgrade, and we'll include the installation of urban canvas in other places. The northern part of the job between 90th and 97th Street and thereabouts, we just repaved it as well, so now we actually repaved 2nd Avenue from all the way from 97 down to 63rd Street, I believe.
As long as you're putting the neighborhood back the way it should be, are you going to put a new Elaine's restaurant in there?
Probably. I don't think we can resurrect Elaine. I mean, this is not in the cards for the moment. In this area, we're actually putting together the cages for the slurry wall panels. These are really large, long pieces, can go up to 120 feet in when we go down to it. So they have to be put together and then basically moved into place. The next. This is the mock house enclosure at 72nd Street. It's a massive thing, yet
It will, in effect, prevent noise, dust, and other unpleasant things to go out, and we expect to it will look pretty neat when it's done. We are working with Arts for Transit, and we expect to have something that will look much better. And this is the one at 69th Street. It's not, as you can see, it's in front of the building there, yet the choices were much worse. So we present to the community, and the community actually liked that. So here we are.
What is the time it's going to be completed, and then if we manage to do this on schedule, when is it going to go away?
I mean, the mock houses, I will have to, I don't recall exactly. It's sometime, I believe, in 2013, but I can't tell you with the precision. I will have to look it up. Actually, these Sandhogs decided to, and these are part of the tunneling job, that they want to really support the community. They understand the impact that they're having, and actually during the weekend they offered donuts and water to the residents, and kind of as a welcoming way of actually showing their appreciation for the patients that the residents are having. That's about it.
Michael.
Any questions, Chuck?
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
have you had a chance to follow up on the sidewalk closures so that they are kept to a minimum? Remember, we called to your attention a number of sidewalks that had been closed off when the work had long since passed or wasn't
Yeah, we have addressed that. We are actually, in fact, although the contracts called for us to provide only a 7-foot wide sidewalk, we are now providing 11. And if we can, we actually do more. We have been very, very strict with contractors in terms of what areas they will be having in terms of for them being able to occupy. So we are looking every time a request comes through, and we want to make sure that they are actually being acted upon, that they work on those sites rather than just use them as a garbage dump. We are working actually with the city to put in place a lot of corrective actions, and actually the repaving was done with New York City DOT. We paid for it, but they did it. So that was kind of, let's call it a collaborative effort. Hopefully, we negotiated with the city as to how much we'll pay. So we felt that was a pretty good price. We checked it out. In effect, I think that in spite of all of the issues that we will have continuing issues. I mean, this is a construction project, and every day that passes without a major problem, I'm very thankful for it. But we're working in a very tight and very constrained urban setting, and we're trying to work with everyone to make sure we have constant meetings with the community, the elected officials. Actually, the borough president holds a meeting every other month to discuss progress and how we're doing. So we're trying to kind of keep a balance and make sure that while we're constructing, we're not going to terribly impact the people.
Any further questions? On to procurements. You know, I have never liked that word procurement. It always somehow seemed to create a demeaning sense to what we're doing here. But are we stuck with that?
I think so.
Okay. Do we have any?
Yes, we have. There's a total of 13 actions totaling $8.8 million in expenditures, and Bill DeSantis is here to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Any questions? Chuck. I'd like to take you to page 6.17, WDF. The delay claim there looks like it's something on the order of 12 or 13% of the total value of the contract. And what I understand here is that you're doing some form of piecemeal mediation, arbitration, whatever. What is it? What are you doing here? If you look at the last line, credit negotiations are not complete. The Transit will pay no more than $500,000 until it's negotiated, and then, it's just not clear where you're going with
Bob
this.
will answer.
We have a situation where we've agreed on the cost of the work, but not on whether or not they're impact costs or not. And since the contractor has done the work, we've decided to pay some of the money rather than keep the contractor and the subs out of pocket and have them finance the work. So that's really what this is. The entire claim is not settled.
Because the claim here is a very significant one in terms of the total value of the contract.
Well, what happened? If you, as you'll see, what happened is that as the work was being done and they went underneath the concrete, there was just a tremendous amount of deterioration in the steel that was unpredicted. So that's why it's such a. I mean, maybe Fred can give you more detail on that.
The difficulty we have with projects like this, which is the viaduct structure on the Rockaways, is the more you go to repair specific obvious faults, like the spalling concrete on the underside, the more you uncover significant deterioration that cannot be seen. And until you actually engage a contractor and to start the repairs, you cannot get a full assessment of the total amount of work that needs to be done. We found that in the mezzanine areas as well, where we originally had scoped the job to scarify the top surface, replace about 2 inches of concrete, and a number of the mezzanines, we just continued to uncover further deterioration of the steel, the rebars, which now need to be addressed once we open it up. So with this project, which is very difficult to coordinate as well because of the beach traffic, where we limit our GOs around and stay away from the summer period, it's created a number of problems for us with just scheduling the work. So that's why you see the cost here is a little higher than what we anticipated as well.
We are looking for ways to be able to do testing that's non-destructive, to be able to determine what the extent of problems like this are. And today, as technology is moving faster, there may be some means available to us. But historically, the full impact of what degradation has occurred to a structure isn't known until you open it up and start to take a look at it. And this is not IND construction. This is probably original Pennsylvania Railroad construction, because that element of the system came over to the Transit Authority sometime in the distant past, but it wasn't built to the IND standards, which were generally very, very good standards.
Thank you very much. I would like to acknowledge that Assemblyman Jim Brennan is here from Brooklyn. I usually can't see that far past Chuck Merdler, but where are you? Oh, there you are. Thank you very much for your support of mass transit, and thank you for your interest in being with us. And you can join us anytime. Thank you for being here. What do we have left to do, Tom?
Well, we need to take an action on these.
Oh, yes. Is there a motion to approve the procurements?
There's a motion. I got a quick question.
Oh, a question from Jeff.
It's them. I was looking at the Charleston bus facility where it also looks like there's been a delay, but this is just to pay the consultants in advance of that. There seems to be a significant number of ratifications of stuff from a couple months ago. Is this just catch up? Why does it take so long? It's just more of a general conversation. There was 3 or 4 of them in this particular one.
Just bad luck this month. Fred, this is just, sometimes we have to just get the work done while the contractor's there.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It's just some of these are back in March. That's all.
Chuck, can I just ask one question? If you look at 7.2 and that one building that on 87th Street you're going to have to do some work on, have you, as you've gone through this process on the 2nd Avenue, appraised the values of the buildings involved to determine whether it may not be cheaper to take the building by eminent domain than to go through some of these things? Have you been doing that?
I'm sorry.
This is not technically a procurement item, but go ahead, as long as it's
Normally, the answer is most probably, at least on 2nd Avenue, what I've seen is the answer is no. We went in to assess what we needed to do, and potentially, if we would have known some of the stuff that we know after the fact, potentially we would have gone a different route. The issue here has been also that when you want to acquire a building, you need to, in effect, do a much more work that we have done in determining the condition of the building. Many of the buildings at the time that were actually identified as potentially problematic. We knew that because we knew the type of construction. We did not know at the time that how much work will be involved.
Michael, my only point in this regard is the following. There can be instances where the cost of the work that you will have to do exceeds the value of the building on an appraised basis, and you may be better off taking the building by eminent domain, demolishing it, or doing whatever you have to do in that regard.
You're absolutely correct. The only thing I would say is that that has to be done not at the time that you get there, because the eminent domain process is a very long one. You really have to anticipate it and do it way in advance, so when you get there, you're done. I'm just going to say to you one thing. I'm sure that everyone has seen the Crane article and other things regarding the settlement on the Fulton Transit for real estate, and that was done many years ago. Yet the settlement, the actual settlement, and this is, I don't think it's even there yet. I don't know if we are contesting on that. It went already to this to the first decision by the courts. We appealed that. It's now, and the appellate division is going to be another one. So that's a long story. So.
The taking process is relatively quick. I did it for the Javits Center, and I've done it for several others. So the point I'm trying to make to you is you can take the property, do what you have to do, and fight about the dollars later on. All I'm suggesting is before the work is done, make sure it's an economic deal.
I would say that that should be for the second, third, and fourth section of the Second Avenue subway. I'm done, with acquisitions on this one. So,
Great. Let's go back to procurements, folks. Is there a motion to approve the procurements? All in favor? Any opposed? Procurements are adopted.
Now we need to take
Service
an action
changes?
No, we need to take an action on
an
his.
action item.
I think that was a separate action, right?
Okay.
Yeah, there's a separate action on the item that was just discussed on the building at East 87th Street.
All right.
You need a motion.
We need a motion. A second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Action item is carried. Service changes.
Service change, moving on to Section 8, we're presenting a service change, that proposal to revise the route of the B-25 bus in Brooklyn. This is in response, as the public speaker talked about, to an action that New York City DOT took in terms of narrowing Old Fulton Street, and we're proposing to extend the B-25 on weekends and at night via the weekday turnaround at Old Fulton, Front Street, Main Street, and Water Street, and the financial impact of this change will be nominal.
Any questions? Chuck?
Mr. Chairman, I have a concern about this in a different regard. My concern is with the Department of Bicycle Transportation. I don't know, do we have any input to this lunacy before it takes place?
Well, I don't know if the actual change is lunacy. I can't comment on that, but Peter can go into the details. The relationship between New York City Transit Bus and subways, for that matter, with New York City DOT is a close one, but the actions that they sometimes have to take to their issues will affect our service, and our ability to operate on their streets has to come with their approval. But do you want to go into the details, Peter, in terms of what the nature of this change is and why?
Right. This is actually a community-requested traffic calming change to Lower Fulton Street that I think actually is targeted towards tour buses that are down there, and actually Senator Squadron's office is very much pushing this. So the issue for us is that it removed our ability to turn the bus around off-peak where it does now. So we're going on the route that we run during weekdays. And while the public speaker mentioned some issues with the one block of that routing, those really aren't. I was out there yesterday and didn't see anything on the weekends there, but there's another. The alternate blocks are actually worse. So it's typical of the streets in that neighborhood, and we think it'll work.
I think when Chuck was talking about lunacy, I think he was referring to New York City's bicycle policy. And that's what Mark Page is here for. I mean, talk to him, Chuck, because, he controls their budget. So you've got him.
He does it exceedingly well.
And the only comment, it probably goes without saying, but There are oftentimes someone comes to speak about a service change that's being contemplated or being put into play that impacts them, but you don't hear from other people who do agree with the routing that we've had. And there has been reach out to the community, there has been reach out to the elected officials, and at the end of the day, sometimes it's the best of everything we can end up with to accommodate for the need that we have to change and try to impact as few people as possible, recognizing that some people do get impacted.
All I was trying to do is to make a point. It seems to me as we go through this process of creating these bicycle lanes and the like, rather than fixing the streets which look like Baghdad, it seems to me that there ought to be coordination between the agencies that are affected, such as you. That's all I'm trying to get to, before they make the decision.
Point well taken.
Peter, were community meetings on this rerouting held?
I believe this is EDC. It's city. Whoever the city's had many community meetings on the Fulton Street project. This particular change was really the only alternative we had to do that. The community was aware that the bus could not continue to use the current routing, and this was the likely alternative.
So there weren't meetings about the service change in the community, however?
No, not specific to this change. We basically had a very relatively short notice on when this is happening in September. We've been working with, we were aware of this project happening and had looked to find alternatives, but this is really the only one that was available.
All right, we have any further business to come before the meeting?
I have a related question on this. Please help me if I heard incorrectly, but when the gentleman, public speaker from Dumbo, asked that we take a look at this, I think we represented to him that we would. I think what I heard you say just now is we have a conclusion. Is that, did I hear right?
Look.
Morning. I'm Lois Tendler. I'm the Vice President of Government and Community Relations. We did reach out to the Community Board and the area's local elected officials, telling them that if DOT imposed these traffic calming measures, we would reroute our bus via the weekday route. And we asked anybody to get in touch with us if they had any concerns about that. What I told the gentleman who testified before you this morning outside was that we always respond to relooking at things we've done. That this is going to happen once the street prevents us from doing what we do now. That I suggested he work with the area's community board, which is Community Board 2, and if the community board was interested in pursuing a different route for the bus, we would certainly look at their recommendations and see if they work from our end. We did look at what he suggested this morning, and it didn't work. And there's been, right now...
And did you express that to him?
Yes.
All right. What did he say?
He said he disagreed, and I said, you're one person. I could produce 5 people who like the way it works. That's why I suggested he go to the community board and see if there was a community consensus. And then we'd have to look at all the other things.
At what stage do you, forgive me,
Fred, since I'm a former chairman of a community board, you can be sure that this staff is going to be very sensitive to what community boards recommend. If it doesn't work out the way it is, we're going to take another look at it.
Do you take these changes to the community board before they are in concrete?
We certainly try to. In the instance of this one, we weren't looking to make a change here. We were reacting to what DOT was doing to the street. We were contacted by Senator Squadron, who's been working closely with DOT about this, because the community was concerned about losing their weekend bus service as a reaction to us not being able to get down there. So we looked at what the possibilities were, and we told them this is what we were intending to do.
Make any of these kind of changes, if you go to the relevant community board and get their view or the view of their transportation committee in advance on a universal basis.
That's a standard operating practice. Sometimes time doesn't allow it.
Allow it in this case?
It was pretty far along. DOT had already had their proposal sort of approved.
One other thing about this. Did the gentleman who made the public comment said that buses were sometimes backed up for up to 15 minutes. Was that accurate?
Peter might.
I'm sure on occasion that happens. It happens in many places in the city. Certainly, we'll continue to look at this. Right now, the street change is happening in September. We don't have any other alternatives for September. It's certainly something that we will continue to look at to see if there's any other ways to route this bus on streets that are better, in the future. It's not something we're going to stop looking at, and obviously within our budget constraints as well.
Then you'll let us know going forward, right?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Any further business to come before the meeting? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before you do, Mr.
I will not entertain a motion, as I said. Yes, sir.
I don't know if Tom has a comment to make. We had an earlier conversation about the reported pilot program. Maybe you'd like to explain that to the committee.
There were news reports probably within the last week and a half to 2 weeks about schedule service changes that are part of the normal seasonal adjustments we make, where we opened up the headway on the Lex line by 1 to 2 minutes in certain times of the day. During the summer riding season, there's less people riding because there's a certain percentage of the working population that takes vacation on any given week during the 8-week cycle of vacations, prime vacations in July and August, as well as the reduction in the amount of school trips being taken by high school students that ride the subways. And so in the interest of trying to see if we could save some money, because these are, I think, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, Peter, we went forward with a pilot. And in normal practice, what we do when we make changes like that, even though it's within the guidelines, we inform the board ahead of time. And I don't believe we did that in this case. So we will revisit that issue because in almost everything we do under the banner of working within the guidelines, we do bring it to the board for information. So in this case, in 2010 hindsight, we probably should have brought it to the board for information.
Can I just ask a question, Tom?
Well, with that mea culpa, we should probably forgive them.
When you ascertain on the Lexington and the West Side IRT that there's less people riding in July and August, hypothetically, is that done on turnstile counts, visual? How is that ascertained?
I think it's done by a variety of things, but I think it's followed up with actual ride checks with counters that actually go on board the trains and see what the peak 15-minute loadings are.
And how many times is that done before you decide that that's a lighter load?
Well, you're right. We started looking at MetroCard registrations to get a global sense. And what we're doing this summer is collecting data throughout the city to look at other lines that might have potential next summer. These were ones where MetroCard registrations were down significantly, and there was a lot of train service scheduled, so a very small change in train service would have a dramatic savings in terms of financial as well as car equipment and power use and other things that were important. We are following through with checks to confirm, and that's one of the reasons we did this as a pilot with the way we implemented it so we can adjust as necessary.
Let me say
and
to you,
if I could
though,
just follow through on that, MetroCard registrations for those two lines, but which doesn't take into account people transferring to those lines.
No, we look at people transferring as well, and we looked at data that we had collected in previous summers along those lines. So the actual ridership decrease on these lines is on the order of about 15%, and the service reductions are less than 10%. So we're very conservative.
Let me just say this to you, though, however. On the number one line, the effect of this has been pretty bad. You haven't factored in the fact that there are tourists who replace the students and replace the people who are on vacation, and there are plenty in Manhattan where the number one goes. The people in the Bronx that have been affected by the number one line are significant when you add the prior reductions in service, and I'd like to ask you to rethink this because it's wrong.
We will rethink it.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
Anyone else have anything to add? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thanks very much, everybody.
How the hell are you? What are you doing with yourself?
I'm paying attention, that's why.